If you had to guess which of these physiques women find more attractive, you'd likely pick the bodybuilder. But in tests, that hypermuscular look was actually the least popular choice. Most men get this wrong because we learn about attraction through the male gaze. We're looking at media made by men for men, where the heroes are designed to look impressive to other guys rather than appealing to women. To understand what's actually happening, we have to look at the work of psychology professor Lauren Campbell. Her research into the female gaze suggests that women prioritize a very specific set of psychological markers that men often overlook. These markers essentially break down into 3 criteria. When you look at the data, they contradict almost everything modern action movies tell us about being an attractive man. Understanding these 3 rules is the only way to step out of the male echo chamber and see how attraction actually functions in the real world. Consider how the camera behaves in a typical male gaze blockbuster. In movies like Transformers, the shots laser focus on Megan Fox's hips, lips, and waist. But in a movie like Twilight, which is built for the female gaze, the camera lingers on the hero's abs, shoulders, and forearms. Yet the actors aren't nearly as bulky as the ones in action films. This is due to the peak shift effect. For the female brain, muscle mass is a cue for health and vitality. Generally, as a man gets more athletic, his perceived attractiveness goes up, but only to a point. If that muscularity becomes extreme, it stops signaling vitality and starts signaling a threat. Data shows that a woman's attraction can drop by 81% if a man appears physically intimidating rather than just capable. Since physical dominance can trigger a threat response, the brain looks for social cues to determine if a man is safe to be around. This is why things like smirking, smiling, and overall facial expressiveness are so effective. They act as indicators of friendliness. A Duchenne smile, which involves the muscles around the eyes, is one of the strongest signals that a man is emotionally accessible. Ultimately, the female gaze is looking for a balance. A man needs to signal that he is physically capable of providing protection, but emotionally expressive enough to prove he isn't a danger. The second criterion is status. We see this contrast in literature. Ian Fleming's James Bond is a stoic, hyper-capable male fantasy, but in Pride and Prejudice, the hero is judged on intelligence and his ability to provide, weighed against his personality. But high status isn't just about a bank account, it's about perception. In 2008, researchers had participants taste 2 wines. They were told one glass was a cheap vintage, the other a luxury bottle. The participants overwhelmingly preferred the expensive wine, praising its superior taste and aroma. But the researchers had used the exact same cheap wine in both glasses. The brain often conflates the way something is presented with its actual value. In human interactions, this means that how you carry yourself changes how people perceive your social standing. We can see this in interviews with Jesse Eisenberg. His closed posture and quick, changing gaze make him appear nervous. To an observer, these behaviors signal low social status, regardless of his actual fame. Matthew McConaughey does the opposite. By using open body language, steady eye contact, and slower movements, he projects an aura of high value. Status is less about objective wealth and more about the behavioral cues that suggest a person has nothing to prove. Finally, there is the need for warmth. In 1913, America was a culture defined by rough, hardened laborers. The social ideal for men was absolute stoicism, but an Italian immigrant named Rudolph Valentino took a different path. He leaned into elegance, grooming, and emotional intensity, traits that were often dismissed as unmanly by his peers. The reaction was massive. Valentino became a global sensation, with women famously fainting in cinemas just to see him. It suggested that even in a stoic era, there was a deep appetite for a type of masculinity that prioritized emotional expression over physical toughness. This desire for emotional connection is at the center of John Gray's research. He noted that men and women often express care in ways that don't quite align. When faced with a problem, most men instinctively try to solve it. But according to the female gaze, the more attractive response is often to listen and empathize. It's the difference between saying, "Take a pill for your headache," and saying, "It sounds like you've been really stressed lately." Resisting the urge to fix things and instead offering vulnerability is what allows for genuine warmth and trust to build. The data suggests that many of the things men do to look more attractive, like chasing extreme muscle mass or acting completely stoic, can actually be counterproductive. The female gaze looks for physical vitality tempered by a safe, expressive personality, status that is signaled through composure, and a masculinity that isn't afraid of emotional attunement. If you want to change how you are perceived, you have to stop trying to impress other men using the logic of an action movie. True attraction requires stepping out of the male gaze entirely and projecting the balanced safety, perceived value, and warmth that science shows is actually desired.